Hello and welcome to the Villains Talk Show. I am
People are here.
one of your hosts, C4. That talking was the lovely, beautiful, ever gorgeous. Someone's mic is dying. Ever gorgeous Insanieac. Visually here with us on my correct direction is the ever stylish Grease Goblin. Sara is with us. She is actually camping right now, so she's in the woods. So she's on Discord on her phone. So I'm assuming that's what.
Yes.
Yes, there she is. We thought we lost her before we started. So you might hear the sounds of nature because Sara is in the middle of the woods, still on the podcast. That's how important we are. She had to still be on the podcast. And
I would do it over the summer if I had cell reception.
We'll build you a cell tower. Dude, I'll just buy you a repeater. They're only like $120.
Yeah, I might have access to one, maybe. I don't know.
Ideas. And then Sir Jeremy will hopefully be joining us here shortly. He got off work not too long ago, so we were kind of waiting for him, but he took too long. So
He took too long.
I'm hoping to make fun of him and be like, damn him and his slow tardiness, and then he just all of a sudden jumps in.
The gentleman is being elusive.
That is how it
usual.
works.
Just jumps in, say, who are you calling late? But not so lucky, I guess. But obviously, Villains Talk Show. We do 2-shot Sundays and we do podcast Wednesdays. That means today being Wednesday, today is podcast day. And the topic was actually brought up by the Grease Goblin. So I'll introduce the topic and I'll let him talk about why he wants to talk about it. Because I have some good stories about it. But this is, I guess I should do the warning thing. We are talking about abuse today. Not the good kind of abuse.
Talking about personal experiences and things, so unfair. We try to be respectful about each other.
So just a warning to anyone who may be watching or listening. Maybe
it'll help you. Maybe it might trigger you.
Yeah, maybe just keep that in mind. But that being said, I'm gonna stop talking, and I'm gonna let this pink-haired, devilish, handsome,
actual Garnet this time.
Is this Garnet?
Ooh.
I had to dye it again because it faded again.
It does happen. Are you washing your hair with a lot of hot water?
No, I'm using cold water and color shampoo.
Weird. It doesn't like you.
No, and this time it's permanent.
I'll get you in touch with my stylist.
Okay.
All right. So take her
I
away.
guess you were waiting on me. Yeah.
Oh yeah, we're waiting on you. 5 seconds of silence, and I'm going to start slapping you. Don't even try it. Don't even try it.
He has easy access to you. Don't do it.
Except he doesn't have easy access because we never see each other.
For now.
He can change that real easily.
But yeah, just recently, I've realized that I've been in a lot of abusive relationships. And most of the time I didn't even realize it until, for the most recent one, about a year after. Yeah. And yeah. So, it was lots of self-discovery lately.
That's good.
Self-discovery is a good thing.
Oh yeah. The first quarantine definitely helped.
Yeah, helps you learn.
So, let's just get into the meat of this, because I've been through my fair share of abusive relationships. Define what do you mean by abuse? It's the hardest thing to do. Define the abuse.
Let's see. It was emotional, physical, verbal, mental, all of the fun stuff. Like, if not one of my exes, like, if because I was living with them at the time, if something wasn't done because I had to go to work, I would get home and there would be a belt.
Oof.
That's rough.
Yeah.
I had a girlfriend 2 years ago. She was a lot younger than me, but there was a lot. But what really broke the camel's back for me is we were talking, and I just found out one of my best friends had passed away. I found out one of my best friends had taken her own life a couple months earlier, and I literally just found out. And this horrible person slapped me across the face and said, "Don't even think about her. She's dead, and I'm here now." And I remember just being like, "Excuse me?" And then tried to yell at me and scream at me that I was the problem, that I need to man up, and that I need to not focus on that and focus on her. And I was like, and that was really what broke the camel's back for me. But I've been in others, mostly where it's like I've been told a lot that like I'm useless. And so I had a girlfriend for 2 years and would always call me useless. She'd always lord her intelligence over me, basically neg me all the time. And it basically put me into a mental state where I kind of thought that I deserved it. And so I would be basically at her beck and call, and I would do what she wanted just because I was in this mental state that I wasn't good enough. And so I had to keep being better, even though all it was doing was it was tearing me up inside. And eventually it was, I do consider it one of the many reasons why I then started doing cocaine like on the regular and got really addicted to it because it became an outlet. Like, I would numb the pain as much as I could when I'd get home, and I would almost dread when my girlfriend would call me because she would just drive over with her car, with her kid, and say, "All right, we're going to do this." And I'm like, "Well, I had plans." She'd be like, "Nope, your plans don't matter because they're nothing compared to what I have to do." And this girl, she had no job. She was living off of money that she had, and I don't want to talk about it too much personally because it's not fair. But at the same time, I had built up this, and I found that, especially recently, I found like in the last year that I was very susceptible to these kind of relationships up until COVID because I had no self-worth. Like, my self-worth was so low that I allowed myself to fall into these mental states where I thought this was what I deserved, and it wasn't true. And it's so hard to listen to other people tell you the truth, because I know for years, like, so many people, especially my family, would tell me like, "Oh no, you're better than this. Why do you put up with this? Blah, blah, blah." But it's one thing to hear it, and it's another thing to take that step yourself. Because it's scary. It's terrifying. It is. And
the hardest part is letting go. Right.
It's
You
not
never
even
know what to do go forward with that. And
Yeah.
that person, that toxic. That's something that you've been familiar with for so long.
And they make you think that you can't move on, or that everything is going to be worse. Like this.
Yeah, exactly. They mentally trap you sometimes.
So let's move down the line then. What about you, Insaniac?
For me, like a lot of my stuff, like when I kind of faced different levels of abuse, came from a lot of my relationships with my parents. Um, I didn't really get along very well with my dad or my brother. It caused a lot of issues of feeling like I wasn't worth anything and that everything I would do is wrong. A lot of times I didn't understand certain things as a kid, and I would get I wouldn't get like beat, but at the same time I would still get hit. There's moments where things were just unnecessary. I wasn't like drastically, abused, and like it was a lot of verbal abuse and a lot of mental kind of like abuse with not a little bit of too much physical sometimes. My parents were very old school, so they were used to having that kind of punishment when they were younger. So it was kind of different in a sense. It's hard to really change that when you grow up with it.
It's so hard.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, because I'm listening to what you're saying, and I can imagine how hard it is for a lot of people, especially if you're a new parent, to ride the line of what's abuse and what's discipline. Because that there's that whole argument about like can you or shouldn't you hit your child, and I'm not going to say what side I come on that debate, but like because in one sense there's abuse that like yours that's valid, and then there's others where it's like, because I grew up in an era, I'm sure some of us did too, where like there would be people that would literally fake their abuse. I mean, there was that girl down in Lethbridge back in like 2004 who faked this whole abuse thing and then ran off with her boyfriend and blamed that her boyfriend tortured her, and that he forced her to murder her parents and stuff, when in reality they found all these texts and these videos that are just like, nope, she was just a horrible person and she would abuse her family.
That's the hard thing with that as well. It's like there's always a kind of another side to it, especially when it comes to other people. And a lot of things, it's better off to take things. It's safer to kind of take things at face value while further investigating what exactly is going on. Like obviously, like it's one thing I think, especially when it comes to kids and stuff, is a lot of people forget that like everyone is still a person out there. Like the experiences and problems that you face, another person is probably experiencing very similar issues, just in a very different way.
I was going to say, a lot of people forget that other people are people.
Exactly,
it's a common problem.
Exactly, right. And a lot of people, it's not even like trying to put yourself in their shoes. It's just understanding that they also have the same problems that you might be having as well, just slightly oriented to their life instead of yours. Like whatever job they might be having at their problem, or their fucking wife, or their parents, or everyone has their different kind of trauma that they carry with them. And the hardest thing that I see is letting go, and it comes in different ways of finding strength. There's many different ways of how to let go, but it doesn't make it easy. There's always a hard way to do it. It's the hardest part is just jumping off the cliff and learning how to fly on your own without whatever this baggage is tearing you down. It's hard to let go of something you've known of for so long, or when people kind of like mentally like train you into thinking that this is what you have and this is all you will have, and if you leave it, you'll have nothing. And realizing that there is a whole world out there, that you have other people that are willing to help support you if you are willing to jump and make that leap to get away from that toxic that feeling. And if someone approaches you saying that they're being abused, it's very much better off to try to like hear them out, but at the same time, don't like, it's not your life either, so you don't want to put your whole heart and soul into somebody else's problems. You should be able to assist them if you can, but you shouldn't dig yourself in a hole to help somebody else out either, because that can lead to them possibly using you as a sponge, or being abused by a person who's being abused. right? You have to be very careful, even when you're supporting someone, of how you would support someone if you were to go out of your way to do that, so that way it doesn't happen to you. And I've seen that before. I've let people.
Yeah.
I've had people stay at my place that got kicked out and stuff like that. That I've tried to help get back on their feet, and I've had it abused in certain ways. Not like in a way that was. It would happen when I was older, so it's something I was able to notice sooner than rather when things got bad. But if it had gotten further, it probably would have gotten a lot worse and been more problems and other issues that have gone along with it. So for me, I was very happy to notice it very quickly. Like, okay, time to go,
Yeah.
and move on for that.
Wicarex says, that sounds like what happened with my dad and mom. His wife died and he got forced into a relationship with her, and she would hide his dead wife's picture and belittle him. Super manipulative. You always want to cling to the best part of him. That is really sad to hear that. Yeah.
And that's the hardest part too. Is like and it's tough when you're a kid seeing your parents go through certain things, because like as an adult, like my parents are separated, so as a kid you don't always quite see the relationship issues that go on between your parents. And for me, I didn't notice much of it, and my parents didn't really make it very well known that they were having these difficulties. Like I thought everything was all good in that kind of sorts of like everyone in the family's life, until probably like a month before things kind of came out. I heard them were talking about issues and stuff, and then they told us they were separating. For I think I was 16 when my parents got divorced. And like when I got older, I ended up learning that they had issues probably about like 6-7 years before then that I didn't even know about. That
They just pulled the stay together for the kids.
Kind of, to some degree, or they tried other things to make things work. They found options and avenues to try to work on things together, but ultimately things didn't work out. And like there were certain points that caused like my mom and my dad to kind of notice things differently, and that's when they had to talk about it. And that's when they separated. And as a kid you don't see that, and when you do see that, it's actually kind of hard. I've heard stories about it, and I've seen kids that have grown up with, like your mom and your dad screaming at each other all the time, swearing at each other, telling them fucking asshole and this and that, and that's not healthy for your kids. So like I'm very hugely appreciative of the fact of my parents being responsible and being very adult about how they handled their relationship, and keeping it, I wouldn't say private, but keeping it to an adult level. It wasn't my business to know about what my parents were going on. I wasn't married to any of them, so I don't really, it's not the only
legally you are now. Legally you can divorce your parents.
I don't even know the process of how that would even go about. But before, even then, they're not, what my parents do in their marriage is not really any of my business. I don't have that kind of connection with my parents in that weird way. So like, I'm not gonna stick my nose in. I'm not gonna be upset. Like I'm upset that, like, when I was a kid I was upset that it had happened, not because my parents were splitting up, because they weren't happy with each other. If like I wanted them to be happy regardless. Even now, like I'm happy for them in the way they are. My parents are separated. They're found different relationships and moved on with their lives, and they're happy. And I'm quite happy that they have found that path. Because as a kid, I would have hated them to see them be miserable, and then in turn maybe push that miserableness onto me and my brother or anything like that. Like that would have been even worse for that kind of abuse.
Yeah, no. It's funny. Because I've grown up inner city. I've heard many of these stories, a lot of different ones, from across the board. Like, man, it's only some I really won't. I really think I'm allowed to share. Okay, I got one.
For me, that's why I just talk about family, because there's other stuff I have. I can't. It's hard to find that moment, so it's okay.
One of my best friends, who last year actually, December last year, took his own life. I lived with him for about 4 years, and man, we could do. I'm so sad I started this podcast before I could bring him on, because I'll be honest, like one of the original ideas of this podcast was actually from just him, because my friend, I guess he's passed on. I could say his name. My friend Brandon Toombs. So he was abused as a child by his father, him and his sisters, and his father went away. This was when he was a kid. And then he moved out to Toronto at 16 or 17 and became a male prostitute for about 10 years. And basically became a male prostitute, and then got AIDS. And moved out to Calgary. And that's when I met him. I started working with him. And we eventually became friends, and then we moved in together. And I would hear some of the stories, and I was with him for 4 years. And man, the kid, like, he had some problems, but for the amount of abuse that he had gone through, like,
I mean, it
This is
requires a
bad
certain
timing for fireworks.
this is a bad timing for fireworks.
Yes.
It requires a certain measure of strength and courage to go through a lot of those problems and continuing going forward.
Here's what I was getting at. Wait,
I'd like
just let me
to-
finish my point.
Okay. I was gonna say,
What I was trying to get at with all this is, he told me a story once. He hadn't seen his dad in over 20 years, because obviously his dad was a child sex offender and wasn't allowed anywhere near his family. And he was out in Red Deer. He was telling me about this like a week after it happened. He was out in Red Deer visiting his family, because he's from Red Deer. And he was walking through the streets, and lo and behold, who does he see walking down the street with his new wife and his new 8-year-old daughter? Is his dad.